Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 78. Today's podcast is on the subject of limiting beliefs, unexamined and often unconscious assumptions that we make about the world or ourselves and that keep us from accomplishing our goals. The good news is, limiting beliefs can be overcome. Take me, for example. When I was growing up in the 1970s, I used to think I would never be the introductory voice for a podcast about communication. But here I am.
Hey, this is Jen Swanson, and you are listening to the Communication Diva Podcast. And this is a podcast that hopes to do a few things, hopes to help you with deepening your relationships, both at work, in the professional world, and at home, in your personal relationships, by talking about communication skills, talking with interesting people who use communication in their work or in ways that might be of interest, and also hoping that some of this is entertaining to you. And so thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. This is episode 78, I believe, and I can't quite believe we're getting quite high up there in the numbers. So lots and lots of listening pleasure for you, I hope. And this is September, and I have started a new job. It is actually an internship. Some of you who have been listening for a while might know that I am a theology student, and I'm in my final year of university. And so one of the jobs I have is I teach in healthcare, totally unrelated topic, and teach in the nursing unit clerk program. And then this new job is at a fantastic little heritage church, and I am working with a smaller group of people than I have been for the past 3 years at the big church I was at, but lovely people nonetheless, and it will be a wonderful learning experience. And I am back at university 2 times a week in between everything else, and so I'm squeezing this podcast recording in between all sorts of other things, as I'm sure you can be familiar with how crazy life is sometimes. But anyhow, today, one of the things that I want to talk about that's been on my mind for a little while is something called limiting beliefs. And so that is our topic today. So I want to ask if you've ever wanted to do something and then have heard that voice inside you saying, "You can't do that. What are you, crazy?" And then once you begin to listen to that voice, what happens is self-doubt arises, and any creativity that you might have had gets squashed. And the practical you sets in and begins to list all manner of reasons why you are best not to do whatever the initial thing was that you were going to do. So if this sounds familiar, then you may be up against something that's called a limiting belief. Now, we all have them, and many of us have lots of them. And these are beliefs that become our realities. And I use that word, if you can imagine me doing quotation marks, I use that word in quotations because these beliefs are actually not real. They are simply thoughts that we believe to be reality. And even though they are not technically real, we treat them as if they are real, and then we don't move forward. So let me give you an example if I may. So for instance, let's say you don't think you're very smart. Somewhere along in your life, in your upbringing, in your childhood, in your school years, there could have been a comment made by somebody. It could have been a score that you got on a test. It could have been something a parent or a teacher said. It could have been any number of instances that caused you to believe that you weren't smart. And so once you begin to think that thought, the mind sets about stacking up evidence to support this untrue and limiting belief. So as soon as you think it, the mind gets busy and finds evidence to prove that you're right. Oh, look at that. I didn't get a top mark again. Must be because I'm not very smart. No, I'm sorry, I can't take that project on. You want somebody smarter than me. College? No, not me. Not smart enough. Does this sound familiar? Can you see how this can happen? So the belief and all of the thoughts around it have formed a large storehouse full of instances, experiences, and evidence to suggest that the belief is correct. And, who are you to argue? Limiting beliefs. Often these are subconscious. And until you begin to examine what it is you really want to do in your life, you may not come up against why you can't seem to get there. Often part of the mental clutter around the goal you would like to reach is limiting beliefs. So around that mental clutter, around this goal that you have said, I'd really like to do that one day. And then all of a sudden, the thoughts and the limiting beliefs begin. So here's another example. I would like to work from my home and be successful in my business. All right, so what could some limiting beliefs be around that statement? I would like to work from home and be successful in my business. It's too hard. It's lonely to work from home. I won't earn enough income to pay my bills. I won't be successful and I'll get laughed at by my family and friends. It's a dumb idea. I should just get a regular job. So those are just some of the possible limiting beliefs that could be in the way of someone reaching their desired goal of working from home and being successful in their business. So what happens when you first design a goal and begin to work on it? Often things will start to tick along nicely. And then, sometimes one at a time, you will come up against a limiting belief and find evidence to support it. Sometimes this will be in the form of researched evidence. So you'll come across statistics, things you read, stories you hear, something you might hear about on the radio or the TV. Or it might be in the form of another person who isn't interested in your success and supports your doubts by saying something like, yeah, I've heard it's really hard to work from home and that it's lonely and that you make no money at all in the first 2 years. It's probably not a good idea. Why don't you try going and getting a job at, X factory? Have you heard things like this before? You might not even realize you're doing it, but you will be seeking evidence to support the limiting beliefs and the doubts that you have, even though you say that you want to reach that goal. And that's kind of how the mind works. It's very tricky, right? Fear instigates the part of the brain that wants the body to survive and supports that response. And you basically end up talking yourself out of what it is you wanted to do because it's safer to not risk, right? It's safer to just not do it. And the mammalian brain wants you to be safe. It goes back through years of evolution. Your brain wants you to be safe. So limiting beliefs come with powerful emotions that can pretty much all but paralyze you. So fear is one of the biggest ones. Negative thought patterns, pessimism, doubt, all of these things will thwart efforts at clarity around an idea and will clutter up and support any limiting beliefs that surface. Unless you pay attention and deal with these beliefs as they arise, you're kind of hooped. The longer you hold on to a limiting belief, the more solidified it actually is in your brain circuitry, right? So like any habit, the connections in the brain will get stronger and stronger the more you think the same way, the more you practice your habit, whatever it happens to be. If it's a physical activity, and this doesn't all have to be negative. If you're learning how to play an instrument and you practice hard, after a while, your body knows what to do and it knows where to put the fingers on the keyboard. And so the brain circuitry is actually quite established at that point. And it would take quite a lot to cause you to forget where to put your fingers and how to play. And, that's that even when people have undergone dementia and other, stroke and things, there are times when that person, if the circuitry was strong enough, can still remember how to play the piano, even if they can't remember their daughter's name. So the circuitry can be quite established, and this is true of thought patterns and negative thought patterns. Absolutely, limiting beliefs. Absolutely, like any habit, the connections in the brain are used to this thought pattern, and it is most comfortable to revisit these connections rather than to break free of them and to think something new. So, most of us have limiting beliefs. What can we do about them? So to start with, being aware that there is such a thing as a limiting belief is an excellent beginning. Once you decide that you might have 1 or 2 or 26 of these around a particular topic, it's good to get out a big piece of paper and a pen, do this old school, and start listing off what those beliefs are. So put your goal at the top and put all of the reasons you can possibly think up that would cause you to not reach that goal. That's step 1. And that does sound very negative. But what it is you put the goal at the top and you put all of the things that your mind is thinking about why that goal is not going to become a reality. That's step 1. Because once a limiting belief is written down, it's somehow easier to deal with. It's right in front of you in ink, and it's actually exposed. A whole page of these beliefs might take you quite a while to deal with, but not a problem. Start with the first one and work your way down. Take each statement and begin to examine it one at a time, and I mean really examine it. When you read the statement, what are the feelings that are evoked when you think it? Are there images in your mind? What are those images? Are there sounds? Are there colors? What is your body doing? Are you feeling any sensations in your body? Are there butterflies in your stomach? Are you feeling something somewhere in your body when you're thinking this thought? Be extremely thorough in describing what it is that goes along with this belief and write everything down. Let it all hang out and expose every ugly thought. And then it's time to ask yourself what evidence or proof you have that each of these thoughts is true. So ask yourself whether or not you can be absolutely certain that what you have written down is an accurate statement. And be kind to yourself as you do this. See what happens. Just be honest. So the idea is to not resist thoughts or to judge them or to be upset or ashamed or embarrassed by your thoughts. Thoughts just happen. You cannot prevent them. There's no point judging them. They are what they are. They are natural and they can't really be stopped easily. So if you allow them to come up and just notice them without grabbing on and following their story, because every thought has a story attached to it, if you can just let the river of thoughts flow past you and just notice them and maybe just be curious and let them flow by, and then after a while, you will notice that you are no longer grabbing onto a thought or a limiting belief, and you're not following that old pattern anymore. So this is really kind of exciting. You've written everything down. You've described exactly what's going on for you when you think that thought, that limiting belief. You've thought, watched all of the thoughts just float by and been curious about them, and you're no longer grabbing onto a thought. You're just telling yourself that is just a thought. That is not reality. Once you've done that, it's time to tell yourself a new story. I would like to work from home and be successful in my business. My new story is, it's not too hard. In fact, it could be easy. I will look forward to the solitude and peace of working alone. I will earn more than enough to pay my bills. I will be successful, and my family and friends will be happy to see me successful. I am full of fabulous ideas, and I'm going to begin right now. When the limiting beliefs are gone, there is so much that is possible. Once we have exposed the limiting belief, examined the emotions and the images attached to that belief, allowed the thoughts and judgments and stories to float past without getting attached to them, and then told ourselves a new story, a more positive story, we are ready, quite literally, to take on the world. It takes practice, though, because the mind is really, really good at adapting and rerouting and figuring out alternative ways to keep you safe, quote unquote. And in order to be really free of limiting beliefs, you have to be aware of them in the first place. So, are you ready to begin? I would like you to identify at least one goal you have wanted to achieve for some time and to begin to expose all of the limiting beliefs around why you have not progressed by writing them down in full detail and description. And once you've done that, just practice watching the judgments and the thoughts float by, but don't grab onto them. And eventually the beliefs will begin to just dissolve. And when that happens, you can tell yourself a new story. You want to create new brain circuitry, right? You want to create a new story around your goal because those limiting beliefs are not real. They're just thoughts. And those thoughts can be let go of. And you can create new beliefs around this goal and a new story. And once you have a new story, you can take the next step to get yourself there. You actually don't need anyone to do this with you. You already have everything that you need within you to do this. The first step, as with many issues that we have as human beings, is awareness, being aware of what a limiting belief is. So it's an activity that you can practice, and even sometimes just being aware of the story that comes along with the belief that you can't do something, or the belief that that might not be a good idea. I mean, sometimes there's a story that goes along with it. Now, sometimes maybe your story is right. But if you do identify it as a limiting belief, something that is limiting your ability to move forward towards whatever goals you have set for yourself, whether they be at work or in a relationship or, in your life, in the bigger picture. What is it that is stopping you? Where is that hitch? Where is that story that you're telling yourself that is working against what you could be doing? All inside your mind. And then once you've identified that, even just being aware of that limiting belief can sometimes help to lessen it, help to begin the process of allowing it to dissolve so that something new can come in and that you can actually proceed with the next step towards the goal that you've identified. It's very exciting stuff. If you would like help with this process, or if you would like to work with me around your goals, I do have a few coaching spaces left and available at this time. And if you are interested in one-to-one coaching, please see my coaching page at communicationdiva.com/coaching. You can email me at jenn@communicationdiva.com, or you can leave me a voice message through SpeakPipe, which is the little button on any of the pages of communicationdiva.com. I would love to hear from you. If you have any experiences about this kind of recognition of limiting beliefs and what you have done to dissolve some of them for yourself, I would love to hear from you about that as well. And I look forward to getting some comments on the website. I seem to be getting a lot of spam right now. And I think it's coming from spam bots. And it's been a while since I've had an actual real life comment from anybody on the website. It seems to be a lot of advertisers and a lot of I think computer generated junk mail that's coming through as comments on the website. So I'm going to have to update my spam filter or something, because it's I used to get really excited when I saw a comment from a listener, and now most of it is spam, so I'm not very happy about that. So please, if you'd like to say hello, I'd really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to sign off. I've got many things to do before my 5:15 alarm goes off in the morning. But again, I am grateful to you for listening, and I look forward to spending some time with you again. Until next time, this is Jen Swanson with Communication Diva, the podcast.